Welcome, bet riders around the world. My name is Gary Solomon, and you're watching the Laid Back Bike Report. It is especially nice to have you all with us today. I hope you enjoy today's show. Let me tell you what is coming up on the show today. We're going to kick it off as usual with our pal Honza Galla with the Recumbent news report. Then we're going to have a return of Dr. Craig Cornelius, who's going to do a presentation on pedal-powered car replacements. This is basically the theme of the whole show today. So it's an important subject, a lot of people talking about it. So we look forward to seeing what Craig has for us on that. And then in the same vein, we have Josef Janning back with us. Josef was kind enough to attend the Podbike launch, which happened in Dusseldorf, Germany this past week. And he got a chance to ride it, and also an amazing interview with the founder of Podbike, Per Sorenson. So I know you're going to enjoy that. We have a report from HP Velotechnik. We have Mathieu Aubel, who is going to be with us to talk about their new arm-powered trike add-on. Really interesting and I think very useful addition to their lineup coming up. So have a look at that. And Denny Voorhees and Larry Seidman are with us delivering the sports. We got a bunch of stuff on sports today, so we hope you'll appreciate what they have to say. Well, let's take a look at who we have with us today. Our crew is, as usual, illustrious and knowledgeable and hopefully fun as well. We have, first of all, in Colorado Springs, Colorado, Larry Seidman doing the directing today. Larry, how you doing?
Good, Gary. Hi, everybody.
We keep Larry busy. It is hard to keep that concentration. Good job. All right. And down in Jackson, Mississippi, as always, the media dude himself, it is Trey Burgoyne. Hi, Trey.
Howdy, folks. Good to be here.
And in the Czech Republic, it is Honza Galla from Recumbent.news. Honza, how you doing today?
Hi, I'm okay. It's great to be here.
It's always good to have you. Down in Big D, Dallas, Texas, it is our good friend Doug Davis back with us again. Doug, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm back from my little bike ride.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that, I think, next month in some detail. We'll get to that. And also, of course, back with us is the famous Larry Varney from Cold Spring, Kentucky. Larry, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here, watching out the window for that volcano. But other than that, everything's great. Well, unless you're watching the Bengals game, we're down 21-7.
All right. Well, hopefully they'll erupt.
Hopefully.
But hopefully they won't because it's the Browns. All right. Let's forget all that. Guys, I would love for you to participate in the live chat. You can do so on either Facebook by commenting on the video you see or on YouTube in the YouTube live chat. So please get on there, ask your questions, make comments. You can talk amongst yourselves. You've got bent riders from all over the world on the live chat. And please let us know where you are watching from. We love to find that out. So you can support the Laid Back Bike Report, of course, by liking us on Facebook, subscribing to us on YouTube, and click that little white eye up there. You'll go to the laidbackbikereport.com website, finding out there a lot more about what we've done in the past, what we got coming up, and how you can support us. The best way you can do that is to do like these guys here, become a Patreon supporter for as little as $1 a month. We would appreciate that. All right, guys, let's get to the great sponsors of the Laid Back Bike Report. First of all, it is TerraCycle. makers of exquisite recumbent parts and accessories for your bent, and Trailside Trikes, a fine recumbent trike shop on the Withlacoochee Trail in Florida and now in Knoxville, Tennessee as well. And Cruzbike, designed for the cyclist who wants to ride farther, climb faster, and adventure more. All cruise bikes and frame sets ship free in the USA. And TerraTrike Green Speed, the best in leisure, performance, adventure, touring, electric, and portability. Wherever your adventure leads, TerraTrike will take you there. And Green Speed, where Ian Sims designs bring performance through science and engineering. And Laid Back Cycles, the top USA dealer for TerraTrike and the premier source for Catrike, Ice, and Green Speed. We give you the freedom to ride. And Recumbent CycleCon. We've postponed the 2021 Recumbent CycleCon, but please join us on October 8th and 9th, 2022 at the Montgomery County Fairgrounds in Dayton, Ohio. For more information, check out recumbentcyclecon.com. All right, folks, let's get on with the show. And without further ado, let's have a look at Honza's news report.
Hello all recumbent riders watching the Laid Back Bike report today. Honza Galla from Recumbent.news here with another set of news items for you. The major one is that TerraTrike has introduced and finally brought to customers their Spider and Spider ATC. It is the long-awaited, road, very fast, and the fastest trike from TerraTrike, using some very nice features like adjustable upper part of the seat or Shimano components and so on and so forth. So this is a very nice trike. You should definitely watch it. So this is it from the news, let's say. And then I would like to mention 3 articles I have published on the Recumbent.news in the last month, which I think are really nice one. The first one is about a velomobile, an amphibian velomobile trip from Finland to Sweden in late 40s in a 2-seater velomobile, amphibian velomobile, and it is really interesting to read it. Another one I like is an interview with BJ Strass from Colorful Colorado, who repairs mesh seats for recumbent bikes and recumbent trikes. So if you are in need for such mesh seat, you can read the article, and of course you can contact BJ and he will gladly repair your seat. I would also like to mention that in the catalog of recumbents, which is published on the Recumbent.news, there are already 225 models from 56 recumbent brands, including such brands like Rinsler from Russia or Serbian Velomotion or Argentinian high bands. Simply quite some brands you probably haven't heard about before, and I think it is also good to scroll through all that models and look at them. And lastly, I would like to mention that I'm going to prepare an article about possible recumbent gifts you can use for Christmas. If you are from a country where Christmas are present and celebrated. And so that will come and will be published next week. So you can look forward and you can follow Recumbent.news to get some inspiration maybe. So this is it for today. Thank you very much. Thanks and bye.
Oh, there's Honza. Hello, Honza.
Hi.
I just wanted to finish.
It's always difficult for me to hear myself, so I was.
Oh
not
yeah,
prepared.
so you tune it out. I know what that's like. I wanted to say just a couple things. First of all, your recumbent catalog of the history and of all the different bikes and trikes is really filling out and starting to be a very amazing, comprehensive look at what's available and what has been available. You should be commended. I think it's tremendous what you've done with that.
Yeah, thanks. It's not about the history. I try to have only the bikes which are like
Currently
at the
available.
moment. So yeah, that's what
Right.
you can find there. I think there may be still some manufacturers missing. Some of them are really missing because I don't have the information with whether the bikes or trikes are really available or what is the cost or the situation still, like with the carbon trikes from Sweden, the former Bacheta carbon trike and so on. So yeah, it is still a work in progress, of course.
Right. It's great though. And just as information, so that you talked about the TerraTrike Spider that's been anticipated for so long and finally coming out. Actually, let me bring Larry up here too. So just Larry and I are going to be heading up to Grand Rapids, Michigan to visit with the folks at TerraTrike next week. And we will be having the opportunity to ride the Spider, both Spiders, I guess, that they have. And Larry will be doing a review of that. So we look forward to seeing what they have, checking that out, freezing our butts off likely in Michigan. But we look forward to bringing that. We should have that for you next month. So I'm glad, Honza, you brought that up because that's something we wanted to share with everybody.
Sure. Yeah. I rode that trike on the Recumbent CycleCon last time. And yeah, it is a nice one and a fast one.
It's a real departure for TerraTrike. So, well, we'll get into that. We'll get into that when we talk about it next week. So, Honza, thank you very much. Stick around, and maybe we'll see you later if you have anything to comment on the remaining segments. So, and Larry, if you want to bring it back to me, thanks. And let me now jump into the first major segment here of the show. Dr. Craig Cornelius is with us, and he has put together an interesting presentation, as I teased at the beginning of the show, about Velocars or petty cars. There are a lot of different names for it. Really interesting presentation. Let's have a look. Good. All right. All right. We are here with Dr. Craig Cornelius. Hi, Craig. How you doing?
Very good, Gary. Thank you.
Craig is back with us with another wonderful presentation, this time about what he's calling Velocars. And I think you're going to really enjoy this. So, Craig, without further ado, let's get into it.
So the genesis of this talk came from what I call the quadricycle quandary. And what that is that in many areas, quadricycles aren't considered legal bicycles. The definition of bicycle is pretty dated. And as a result, quadricycle velomobiles aren't legally allowed on bike paths and bike trails. So one has two choices. One could try to change the legal definition of the bicycle, or one could create a new category of vehicles. And I'd like to call this category Velocars. So we can go to the next slide. So is there a legal need to define and regulate all-weather pedelectric commuter vehicles so they better interface and supplement automobiles for short and medium trips? The answer, of course, is yes, based on the quadricycle issues. And I think Velocar would be a good name for this category. So why Velocar? Many of you that know the history of recumbent bicycles know that the Mouchette family produced Velocars up until World War II. Their Velocars were two-wheelers, but they put two of the two-wheelers together and got four-wheelers. And they were a use for transportation before the war. Another reason is we need a word to differentiate our vehicles from e-bikes because they're technically more complicated. We need to differentiate them from velomobiles because many velomobiles are too low to mix with traffic. And some of the velomobiles, for example, the Elf, are too wide to interface with bicyclists. And I like the fact that it ends with car in the name. It kind of reminds people that we're really trying to put this out as an alternative to your gasoline car. So I tentatively came up with some specifications here. Must have 3 or 4 wheels. Must be no wider than 36 inches. This comes from the fact that on the bike trails that I use, there are very often 36-inch wide barriers to prevent automobiles and other bigger vehicles on it. It must be at least 48 inches high. This is for visibility. And I base this on my experiments with commuting in morning rush hour traffic next to, in a bike lane, next to cars and trucks and stuff like that. And I wouldn't be comfortable with anything lower than that. A 250 watt power assist. You know, in Washington State, there used to be 1,000 watt power assist allowance. It's down to 750 watts. 750 watts is 1 horsepower. That's about twice the horsepower of a very Olympic class cyclist. So 250 watts kind of keeps you in the regime where you have to do some pedaling. And it must be capable of being propelled solely by pedaling if you don't have any power assist at all. And it must have your standard horn and lighting. So I've gone through historically, got some past vehicles and some current vehicles, kind of discuss how they measure up. This of course, is the Velocar from the early 70s. It happens to be a favorite of mine because it occurred in the press about the time I started dabbling with human-powered vehicles. It's 4 wheels, 2 front wheels steer, 2 rear wheels drive. It had a linear pedaling system that drove through a custom 5-speed gearbox. It had reverse gear, which is pretty cool. And it had some car-like features, one of which is it has a door like a car, so you got in it that way. Had a kind of a rumble seat in the back where you could put people in it. It had, it was probably the closest thing that has been done to the original Velocar concept from before the war. A few things could help with the rollover resistance of the vehicle. One would be to lower the seat, and a second thing would be to put batteries in it, low mounted. When this came out, you didn't have the battery assist. And you could have a bit more streamlining. You could put the wheels in what wheel pants, that's what the aviation people call them, and you could streamline the body a little more. So this is the Litra, which I'm sure everybody in your audience has seen and knows about. Is designed in the late 70s by Professor Carl Georg Rasmussen, a really well-designed vehicle. You can tell that it was designed by a scientist. It's a copy of something that Rasmussen remembers from his youth, and that's the little green vehicle up in the left-hand corner. This was called a Phantom, and it was a three-wheel tricycle. And Rasmussen kind of updated it. He has two front wheels steering, one rear wheel driving. He has a suspension via a flexible framework in it. He streamlined the center section, uses wheel pants on the two outboard units. And I think Gary points out this is dated, but by 2015, he had made about 260 of these vehicles. So technical observations, very well designed. It could be, and your people could probably dispute this, maybe the best all-weather velomobile or commuter vehicle that's on the market. And it at the width of almost 40 inches, it's a little too wide for some of the trails that people would like to use it on. So this is the Vector from 1980. It was kind of the design that changed how everything happened subsequently. The single version got up to about 57 miles an hour. The tandem version, which had one rider facing forward and one rider facing backwards, also cranked, the rear rider cranking. That that was the first vehicle to break 60 miles an hour. But I think what captured the public's imagination was this vehicle was ridden on the highway from Scranton to Sacramento on Highway 5, covering about 42 miles and an average speed of about 50.5 miles per hour. And the press sort of looked at this and said, wow, a human-powered vehicle could be a viable means of transportation. And the 1980, I think it was August of 1980, the New York Times had a big photo spread about the Vector and other human-powered vehicles. But you'll notice this is where your modern velomobile got its look. The tadpole, two front steering, one rear driving. This was pretty low, height of 32 inches, very little steering lock. It wasn't intended to go around tight corners. It would roll over. Lightweight, but a really outstanding engineering effort that kind of changed the look of things. This is the Cyclodyne from several years after the Vectors came out. Alan Carpenter did a very good engineering job on this. He did a few things that were overly complicated, one of which is he drove and steered the front wheels, and then the back wheel was just actively suspended. But interestingly enough, in a review from, it's either Popular Science or Popular Mechanics, the bicycle editor noted that he was fiddling with the gears and he looked down at the speedometer and he was going at 30 miles an hour. So it was very well streamlined. It had some issues in that when it mixed with cars, the cars didn't know what to make of it, and they wouldn't pass the vehicle. And so it was a big traffic obstructor. The owner that reported this took the fairing off and had no problem, but then he had no more speed. The other issue was Carpenter overpriced it for the time. It was priced at $4,000. Now, he did this for a reason that wasn't valid. There was a local outdoor outfitter in Seattle called Early Winters, and Early Winters acquired one of the original Vector trikes. They only had one, and they put a price tag on it of $10,000. Well, it never sold. It ultimately was donated to the local Human Powered Vehicle Club in Seattle. But Carpenter thought if you could sell that for $10,000, you could sell this for $4,000. So he kind of overestimated it. One of my favorite vehicles, if I was advising carpenter, I'd say, if you want to drive the front wheels, don't steer them, steer the rear, which will allow you to make it a little bit narrower if you're willing to embrace the rear wheel steering issues. So this is the Vimo, which is out of British Columbia. It's an electric assist tricycle. I was in communication with Cody Baker when he was in the design process for this. And I said, Cody, you realize that you lose 50%, you only get 2/3 of your rollover resistance with 3 wheels as opposed to 4 wheels. And Cody said, 4 wheels aren't a viable vehicle in Canada, just like the United States. And then I said, well, what about making it leaning? And he said, well, he thought leaning would be too complex for your average rider. He wanted a scenario where somebody could come in and rent the vehicle, just use their cell phone and charge it that way. But I look at it, it's a classic example of what happens if somebody designs to the rules. The width is narrow, it's less than 36 inches. The height is above 48 inches, but the rollover resistance is very low. And there's a disclaimer on the Vimo site saying when you corner, you have to slow it way down. So it's a classic example of why static trikes really aren't what we want for the future. So this is a Quattro Velo. I was telling Gary, this kind of came out of the Roll Across America design that Alan Kingsbury entered in it. It's got a child jump seat in the back. Very good cooling of the rider's head, which was something that Rasmussen pointed out as being important. A very, very impressive design. This is the Podbike, current design that's in production. 4 wheels, 2 front steering, 2 rear driving. Has an interesting drivetrain. The pedals drive a generator. The generator powers the 2 rear wheels. The seat can be raised up for ease of entry. And it has a lot of potential. I did get to see a 10-minute road test of this vehicle done by an electric car reviewer. And it had some interesting things. There was a significant lag between pedaling and the vehicle moving. The full canopy looked like it made the interior of the vehicle pretty warm, but and it had suspension issues. But I'm sure that those are things that will be resolved in the future. So I kind of came up with a performance comparison of these vehicles here. A cautionary note: my rollover resistance numbers are very approximate. They were based on the width of the vehicle, the seat height, and whether the rider was sitting upright in the seat or being leaned back. So take these numbers with a grain of salt. But and the green areas where it meets my straw man specifications on things. So you see the dimensions of the pedicar are good. It is a 4-wheeler, and the rollover resistance isn't 1G, but it isn't too bad. Litra is a little wider than I would recommend. It has 3 wheels, and its rollover resistance is about 2/3 of a G. Cyclodyne is both the Litra and the Cyclodyne are wider than I would recommend, and the Cyclodyne is lower. It again is a 3-wheeler, and it has about a 2/3 of rollover resistance there. Vimo meets all the dimensional requirements. It's below the 36-inch width. It's above the 48-inch height, but its rollover resistance is, about 1/3 of a G, which is going to be a problem if you corner at any speed. Quattro is a little is narrow as I would recommend. Height's a little bit is lower than the 48 inches. It does have the 4 wheels, and it has a very good rollover resistance of over a G. Podbike meets the width requirement. Its height requirement is less, when it's all the way in its lowest position, is less than I would recommend. I know this is something that will get debated in the Podbike literature. It says it's lower than several sports cars, but I would be uncomfortable riding the Podbike next to the traffic that I do in the morning. It does have good rollover resistance, and it has an official 250 watts. I throw in what I call the controlled tilting trike, which by design is less than the 36 inches and is above the 48 inches. And it can be in excess of 1 G in rollover resistance. Probably the simplest path to a modern Velocar is basically look at the Velocar, get rid of the linear drive, and substitute the derailleur gears for the 5-speed tranny. A big problem with the Velocar was, with only 5 speeds and a wide range of gearing, each gear step was 60%. Now, a mountain bike can get you down to about 15%, but 20% is about the maximum you want between your shifts to be comfortable. So people riding the Velocar couldn't really get into the right gear. There's room for improving the streamlining, and I think the rollover resistance can be increased by dropping the seat a little bit from the 15 inches to maybe 12 inches, and use batteries and mount them very low. So this last piece is a video from the 70s of the Velocar, and what I like about the video is it gives you the feeling of what a good Velocar, how a good Velocar could make people's lives better on a day-to-day basis. So let's have a look at that.
What has one eye, a voice, 2 pedals, 5 gears, 4 wheels, is yellow all over, and holds 1.5 people? It's a pedal-powered people mover, which you may buy for $500. You may pedal with 1 foot or both feet. The Velocar is meant for short-distance travel. All the energy it takes to make it go is your own. The Velocar, which is manufactured in Connecticut, is easy to maintain, costs nothing to operate, doesn't pollute, and gives exercise to boot, especially going uphill. When your job keeps you running from building to building, it'll keep you out of the rain. It's a more economical way to pick up little things. It parks in far less space than any car. It can take you home from work or on any short trip. In all, it gets around very well. Although it can't pass much, it can always pass a gasoline station.
All right, folks, and here is Craig live with us. Craig, great to have you on Laid Back Bike Report again, and
Thank you.
fascinating presentation. We really appreciate that. Now, I'm not going to let you get away without a discussion here with some of our other panelists here.
Of course.
A lot of stuff brought up there. So,
Sure.
Larry, if you could bring Doug in, and maybe Honza, and also Joseph, and I want to see if we can talk about a couple of points that Craig brought up that I know you guys have some ideas about. The major thing that everyone wants to know about is this 3- and 4-wheel thing, but we're going to save that till after Joseph's segment, and we're going to have a nice discussion about it there. I think the thing that we maybe can focus on here that seems to be something popping up in the chat a lot is this height idea that you have, Craig. I know even in your last presentation, you talked about the safety issue of having something high enough. And then this is always going to be contrasted with the aerodynamics and such. So if Craig, first of all, if you could just make your point about what you think about height of these vehicles, and then we'll get some responses.
It's visibility, right? I went out there with a tape measure and measured the sill height on my Subaru, which is about 39 inches. So you can envision yourself driving down the road, looking over, in the United States where you're driver's on the left side, looking to the right, looking out the window. What are you going to see in a quick look? If the vehicle is below the 39 inches, unless your side mirror is correctly positioned, you're gonna miss things. The comment that you can't do aerodynamics, I don't think that's valid. And you have to look at how fast do you want your vehicle to go. In the US, there's a category 3 for e-bikes, which is, correct me if I'm wrong, Doug, about 27 miles an hour. So
Yeah,
go ahead. Go ahead and answer that, and then give us your ideas as well.
Well, the three class category isn't in all states, so states get to define them the way they want to.
Okay.
It's a recommended thing by the People for Bikes Coalition, and I think I'd have to look. I think 38 states currently have the 3 class.
Okay.
I'd have to check my spreadsheet that I track this stuff on. But yes, it's 27 miles an hour with some variations. Like, some states are now requiring speedometers, and it's 27 max as opposed to 27 assist, stuff like that. So there's still some wild west out there in the way the laws are written.
So if you're looking at your average bike trail, you're about 15 miles an hour, about 27 or 25 kilometers per hour. So the question is, how fast does it have to go? And I think a more upright vehicle with reasonable streamlining could make that requirement with no trouble. Keep in mind that I think the EV Stello is the fastest hour record recumbent, which is pretty low. It's done 57 miles in an hour. That's a lot faster than we need. So I would debate the height issue from the standpoint of speed reduction with streamlining. On the
Honza, you want to go ahead and respond to? I know you had some thoughts on it.
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think that the height, if you have an electric assist, then the height and aerodynamic is not so much important. And also, many velomobilists don't have issues with the height itself. It is a number one topic when talking about recumbents, always. So people, if we want to have those vehicles generally accepted, we cannot have them that low. And again, and of course, as well, to get so low, I mean, to get in and get off the bike is always, the lower you are, the worse it is. So, yeah.
Yep. Now, Josef, I'd like to have your thoughts on this. As someone who generally doesn't use e-assist and rides relatively low velomobiles, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, Gary, I have to admit that I'm a bit allergic to that, because I think, yes, for unassisted velomobiles, you don't want to be as high as Craig wants this to be. And I have to say, and probably Doug can confirm this, in all of the, I don't know how many tens of thousands of miles I have on public roads in several countries, this is not the issue. The issue is not that you are too low to be seen when you're in front of a car. The issue is, in a way, as Craig has said, the issue is, what do you do when you're besides a car? What do you do when you're behind a car? Then I say, from my experience, you know that you don't want to act like a usual bicycle. You don't squeeze between cars. You don't jump on the sidewalk and back on the road. You don't do this. You behave like a car, as bad as it sounds, but which also means that at times you get stuck in traffic. You pull over to the side a little bit so that the driver in front of you has a chance to see you in the rearview mirror. And that is what you need to do. And that, in my view, in my experience, solves the height issue. Because I, as a velomobile rider, I think the more important issue for at least my class of velomobiles is to keep the speed differential between urban traffic and velomobiles as low as possible. With something like the pedal car, the ped car that we have seen, you will always be a major obstacle in any kind of urban traffic. With a modern velomobile, you have a good chance in, let's say, 70% of the time, to be floating with urban traffic, which in European cities now tends to be running at speeds between 30 and 50 kilometers an hour. In there, I think the ease of moving along with traffic is more important than other factors. And I conclude with that. But of course, there are other aspects in this that we need to discuss. I see a velomobile as a super bike. And Velocars, and I accept that distinction that Craig has been making, Velocars basically are sort of super efficient cars. Sort of small cars that don't need all that material and weight and big engine in order to move just one person 10 miles across the road. That's where I see the basic distinction. As a velomobile rider, you come from cycling. You want to have better performance than a road bike and more luggage space and comfort than a touring bike. And that you get with a velomobile. But you have to, accept certain compromises. You have to be willing, unless you go to the bakery to get some bread in the morning, you have to accept to dress for your ride, because you'll be sweating. And in these fancy videos, and Podbike Frikar is the same, you have normal people who don't want to change, who don't want to lose a drop of sweat entering into something and biking along. And that, even with e-assist in the way that is legal, at least in Europe, I think doesn't really work. Because either you will be very slow or you will find that you'll still be uncomfortable. Okay.
All right, Josef.
Talk
Thank
too
you.
much.
We're going to get into some more of that here after your segment. But Craig, I'm going to give you the last word here to respond to that.
I think that makes a lot of sense. One big question is, who would I be aiming the Velocar at? And the Joseph's mention of the sweating, if you have any streamlining, you suddenly have sweat issues. So giving a person something that they can get to work comfortably and not sweat, I look at that and say, you know, we're going to be undermined by electric scooters, because in electric scooter, you can get to work quickly, and sweating isn't the problem. So who your customer is a big factor. And I'm not a velomobile rider. I'm a recumbent rider. So Joseph's perspective on an avid velomobile rider, I think is very valid. And I thank him for that.
All right. Very good, Craig. Yeah, I think that's true. And, you know, you did mention briefly in your piece there about riding trails and such. I don't see the Velocars as being riding trails too much. You know, if they're going someplace, there's a trail to get there. But as a recreational trail vehicle, I think that's more of the bicycle kind of and trike thing.
You've got the track issue, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's something you talk about a mountain biker. It's single track.
Right.
And
for sure.
That's the deal. So.
All right, you know, we're gonna continue now, I think, with Joseph's segment, and I'll bring you guys back again, and we'll further this discussion after we listen to what Josef got into. So, as I mentioned in the opening of the show today, Josef was kind enough to go to Dusseldorf and attend one of the launch events that Podbike had for their Frikar. And this is all really interesting. He interviewed the founder of Podbike, Per Sorenson. I think that's up first. And then he had a chance to get into the Podbike and ride around a little bit, and he'll give you some of his thoughts during the video. And then we'll get a summary of that and see what else he has to say afterwards. So Larry, let's get this rolling.
Folks, I'm here with Per Sorenson, the man behind the Podbike or Frikar. He will explain us all about the idea, and we'll discuss a little bit this peculiar velomobile and how it rides. So, Per, it's a pleasure to be talking with you. What was the origin of this idea?
The origin of this idea was actually an accident. I was out riding to work the first working day of 2009. Early in the morning, very dark, it was January, and there was a car coming towards me in the opposite lane, and suddenly he turned to his left, blocking my way.
Okay.
So I hit the car and I crushed my knee, and I almost broke my neck, and after that I got really scared of riding a regular two-wheeler bicycle.
Okay.
So I bought a Velomobile kit from the Netherlands.
Okay.
And then I put that together, and I started to use it, and I used it for 7 years.
Yeah, that was an elevator, I suppose.
For fantastic construction. Yeah. I'm so impressed with those who designed it, but there was still room for improvements.
Yeah.
And as a product developer, every journey in the bike was an inspiration of we really need to improve this.
Yeah.
And I had also some accident in that bike.
Okay.
Yes, I was going quite fast downhill on a road that I knew very well. But what I didn't know was it had been icing on the surface. Yeah. So when I was braking, suddenly the elevator came into a 90-degree orientation.
You lost traction on the rear wheel.
Yes, and I turned around and then I
you flipped over. Yes.
Twice.
Yeah.
Dum, dum.
Yeah. And that's why this has four wheels, or?
That's a very important reason for having four wheels, is to avoid these things from happening. But nothing that was very interesting was that I was absolutely without any damage, or I didn't hurt anywhere. The bike looked, however, very bad, like a Coke can that you've been, stamping on in the sand, full. It looks a lot of, impact from the asphalt. But I was I became so convinced that you really need this shell if you want to stay safe in traffic.
Right. Yeah.
And after my experience with this crash, I thought that everyone should ride the Velomobile. But we need to improve it. So that's when it started.
Okay, and that was about what year?
It's I had the crash in 2009. I guess this accident in the velomobile was in the year after 2010. Okay. So I think that was the real kick of that. Okay. Let's spread the word. Velomobiles are fantastic.
Yeah.
And then I found out pretty quick that everyone doesn't really like the looks of Alleveda or a Quest or a Quattro or Milan or all these very beautiful machines that has been fine-tuned over the years, and they are handcrafted. They are bespoke vehicles. However, most people will not be seen in them because they are too odd for most people. Yeah. They're not used to it. So of course, if everyone was riding around in these high-speed vehicles, it will be changing the fate of velomobiles. But I thought, okay, let's do it the opposite way. Let's try to make a velomobile that will attract to how people's perception is today.
So this is designed to be more car-like.
Yes. So we hired actually a car designer to design it. Per Selvåg he's actually from Norway, but he's been working at, BMW, Rover. He was the lead designer at Peugeot, and he had started his own design company in Berkeley, California. So we contacted him and asked, hey, can you help us make a very sexy velomobile that everyone likes and everyone really wants to be seen in? Yeah. And we got a reply after an hour on the email, and he said, yes, I'm in. Yeah. Good. And that was really the kickoff of the company. That was in 2015, early 2015, I think.
This is a product that is designed to be scaled. That is designed to reach higher production numbers.
It's designed to be in the future fully automatic assembly.
Yeah.
So
and that will all be done in Norway?
No, we make some parts in Norway, like the aluminium chassis is assembled in Norway. The everything that is glued and riveted, we don't use welding because welding is on aluminium. You really need to do what's called a heat treatment afterwards, and that's quite energy intensive. And another benefit of not using welding is that we can use alloys which are not suitable for welding but have very good inherent anti-corrosion properties. Okay. So the aluminium alloy we use doesn't need to be paint or corrosion protected. It does it by itself. So that means that we have only one part that's painted on the bike, and that is something that's painted due to friction properties.
Okay. All right. I see that you have very unusual wheels, at least for a standard bicycle.
Yes. In at the Spezi or in Germersheim, the Specialradmesse in Germersheim in 2013, I met a very nice guy called Leo Fischer.
From Alight in the Netherlands?
Alight, yes. And he and I was then collecting data for my master thesis on velomobiles that I was finished with in 2014. And he and we started a discussion that normal spoke wheels are not so good on velomobiles because of the sideway loads. Plus, if you want it as an all-year-round vehicle, you get stress corrosion on the aluminium, around the spoke holes, etc. So we agreed that we should make a wheel ourselves with thermoplastic reinforced with glass fiber. So we could easily recycle the plastic, and we could at the same time mass produce it at reasonable cost. Yeah.
So I have seen the Orca equipped with these wheels. I have also received a few reports from riders breaking one of these wheels. And I believe that Alight has produced a newer version or a modified version of the wheel.
You see, when I made 18 versions. So I did the engineering in my home office, simulations, etc. Up to version 18, and then I had a lot of ribs inside, but it was simply too expensive to make a tooling for that. The agreement between Leo and me was that I did the engineering and he did the financing and production and the tool cost. And the tool cost is quite high. Okay. Because it's a quite advanced tool, more tool. And he had to remove the ribs, reinforcement ribs. So instead he increased the thickness, But the problem with that is that you make it stiffer up to a certain point, but then you get a kind of collapse. If you had ribs, it would be a little bit more flexible, but almost as stiff, and the weight would go down. But the tool cost would be much higher because you need to do something called electro discharge machining. And that's
okay. Let's not get too deep into the technicality. Let's assume that this will have overcome, the early problems of that type of wheel.
This bike is the maximum weight is 200 kilos, and the wheel we have now, the first generation of the light wheel, it handles 60 kilo, no problem. And the new wheel he's made is heavier, and we will use that for our off-road version. There will be conversion kits, so you can put on the heavy wheels.
And you ride it off-road.
And it will be much higher ground clearance, and it will be about 15 centimeters wider, so it's very stable, and it would look more kind of masculine. So it's the SUV velomobile.
Fair. There would be a million things that we can talk about, but there's one thing that we need to discuss. That's the drivetrain. This is, I think, unlike any other e-bike that is on the market, at least that I'm aware of. This has no direct physical connection between the pedals and cranks on the one end and the wheels, the two rear wheels that are driven on the other end. So
to explain
why is that?
To explain why we went for that, you really need to read the section on the drivetrain in my master thesis, which you can download freely. It's velomobile :
check it out on the website. There's a link to it.
But you can also search on Google, find it. Velomobile redefined. But in the short thing, we are making a transport vehicle for commuting. That means there should be minimum amount of service or maintenance. And if you had a chain like on the Valleveder, it's more than 4 meters long. It's a lot of maintenance and it's weight, etc. And it's very hard to adjust the vehicle for different persons with different.
And here it is fairly easy. I have tried that out.
And it's here you only bend some wires, so it's very easy to move the pedals relative to the seat. Another thing is that we have 2 rear wheels. That means that if you had a chain system, you would need to have some kind of differential or at least a way to bring the energy to at least one rear wheel. And we have full independent suspension. That means you would need to have what's called a CVT joint or a universal joint.
You just have an electric motor on both wheels.
Yes. So one wheel is the assist motor driven by the battery, and the other motor is the electronic drivetrain. Where you pedal on a generator, it's converted to electricity, goes through these bendable cables, and then out to the other motor.
So you still need to move the pedals in order to move forward.
Yes.
Like every e-bike has to, according to our legal requirements.
Yes, it's designed to follow the EU directive requirements, where you have a limit of 250 watt maximum continuous output power, 25 kilometer maximum assist speed, and you have to pedal to have assist.
But essentially, the power you put into the generator by pedaling, that is primarily used to identify, this guy is pedaling, so the Frikar should be moving forward or backward.
In 2010, this bike would be fully illegal within the e-bike regularity. In 2017, there was added an extra requirement which require the bike to be able to move without battery. It's called fault tolerance test.
That would have been my next question. What do? I sit in there and the battery is dead.
The thing is that this is a heavy bike, and the drivetrain we have, it has an efficiency, worst case around 50%, and max best is maybe up to 70%. Because you have so many energy conversions. So you lose a little bit every step, and many steps, you lose a lot.
So what do I do? Do I pedal for 15 minutes and then?
You pedal for a few seconds and then you charge up the capacitors and it will start to roll. And that was a big challenge with the serious hybrid of two-wheelers. Because you need to balance for a few seconds. That's very hard. But we have 4 wheels, so it works.
That's no problem.
So that's the way we beat that requirements. And it's also a big challenge on all cargo bikes.
Yes.
If you have a big load,
Yeah.
there's no chance you can pedal it without the electric assist.
Yeah.
So the requirement is only 10 kilometers on flat road.
Okay. Let's talk about the typical use case. As I see it from the short test ride that I took, from what we've been discussing, from the specifications of the machine, this is ideally a commuter vehicle for the suburban people who commute into town and back, or who do shopping trips. You can store a lot of luggage in there, but essentially they will mostly do it all on the charge of their battery. So the case we've just been discussing, that the battery goes dead because you run out of range, for most people will never happen, because it's the 10-15 kilometers that they do in and out in order to do what they want to do.
It will be where you maybe forget to charge and really need to travel, and then you take the risk. I know this because I've been riding or using very old electric cars with very minute range, and you always stretch the range, and it's very stressful. So here in the bike, what we do is that we reduce, or this is something we can very easily reprogram, because we are now setting up what's called over-the-air software updates. But it will be possible to have a usage profile, so when it goes down in range, it will reduce the assistance level. And you will get ample warning that the battery is low. You have now 20 kilometers range left, you have now 15, you have now 10, something like that, which you can of course turn off if you enjoy living a little bit risky. But we try to make it so we reduce the stress of people's lives and make it as easy as possible to drop the car trip and use this instead. We really want the Frikar to be the preferred means of transport, even if you have a super duper fancy something of a car. You prefer the small, nimble.
Because it's easy, it is fun, it is...
Give you some exercise and you can adjust the assist level, so you can really have a workout. We can have a negative assist if you really want. If you want to have a super duper workout.
And all the kind of the feature and power management is done by your smartphone.
The thing is
essentially
that
there's an app that is basically the connection also for updates, or how do you do that?
But you don't need a smartphone to ride it. We made it so that it has all the legal requirements needed without a smartphone. So you get warning if there's a light that's malfunctioning by audible feedback. You get a warning when the battery is low by audible feedback. And you don't need a speedometer. That's not a requirement. So we have no display as standard. It's only a computer that makes some voice feedback to you. And if you want, there's a small micro SD interface where you can plug in your own words or your own whatever you want as a warning instead of the standard.
Speak to you.
Yeah, you can make it speak whatever dialect or language you want. And you can put in some strange... there's a theft protection system, so you can put in some, very scary sentences if you want.
Okay. You have over 3,000 pre-orders, I understand.
Yes.
So the first 3,200 something or so will be the first recipients of this. Somebody who now sees this and says, I must have this. What is it? Is it the Frikar? Is that the name? Or
Frikar is the name of the model.
Of the model. Okay.
Podbike is the brand.
All right. So somebody who wants a Podbike Frikar now and orders through the website now has a chance to receive it when?
For the moment, it will be several years, but it seems like we will have some investors that can help us expedite the production and bring it up to scale much faster.
Yes. Could you imagine to license production to the United States, or how do you want to serve the North American market?
We have had discussions with factories in North America for license production. In the States, however, they have a peculiar rule. Like the Germans with the lights. E-bikes can only have 2 or 3 wheels.
Yes.
So we need them to add one to that number, the last number.
I think it's not in all states that you have this, but in a number of states,
yes,
you have some very odd requirements.
And in some states, you're actually allowed to have what's called a single vehicle acceptance. So if you go to the right authorities with your vehicle and you show them that this is a bike you need to pedal, there's no hand throttle or something, I would say you have the chance of getting it. At least in Canada, that's possible.
Okay. All right, Per. Thanks for a moment. Thanks a lot, and good luck, much success with the Frikar.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So, dies ist also das Podbike, immer noch ein Vorserienmodell, aber eins, das man fahren kann.
Hey Joe, I thought this was supposed to be in English.
Ich habe eine Runde den Block gedreht. Okay, I have to do this in English. So, this is a pre-series model still, but one that you can use, one you can ride. I took it for a spin around the corner, and I'll tell you a bit about it. It's interesting. It's somewhat weird when you're used to a standard velomobile because it's different than a velomobile. It has a very small turning circle, very spacious, lots of space in the trunk. There's the option for a child seat, large space. There is a ventilator in front that you can turn on with the switch here. You can close this with two handles, and I will show you this. Okay. You see, now it is not fully closed. There is still some space out in front and some space here. So there's an option to ride it not fully closed because that will bring in more air. But there's also the option to fully close it. When I took it for a spin, I had it fully closed so that I can get a proper reading of the sound level inside. I find it still rather noisy, both the noise from the two engines on the rear wheels and the noise from the generator here in front. It has a reverse gear, so when I pedal reverse, it will roll to the reverse. Okay, it also has, of course, assistance. There is your smartphone as the central display. You
see that you can't hold it in place with the cranks.
So the smartphone will be right here on the boom, and it gives you everything. Will be a Podbike app or a Frikar app, and it will give you all the information about your speed, of course with the smartphone GPS, about battery status, about all the other switches like light, high beam, low beam, ventilator. You know, there is a fan installed in the front of here with a pollen filter. I think that comes from a vacuum cleaner. But anyway, it looks like a professional pollen filter. You have two rear view mirrors that could be adjusted from inside, but not working on this model. So this still has a couple of parts to it that are pre-series and not series. But the design already looks very professional.
Top speed is meant to be 60 kilometers an hour. Beyond 50, recuperation will control your speed. There are mechanic disc brakes in the rear and hydraulic disc brakes in front, operated at the steering bar, and both have parking brake functionality.
Now, let's open it to get out. I'm struggling a bit with it. with the brakes here.
Because you can't operate the parking brake single-handedly.
Okay. Yeah, I'm struggling a bit with the brakes because the rear brake doesn't really hold me. You know, it's not. Yeah, I know, it's not. Yeah, now it does, yes. But you can't do it one-handed. You can't do it one-handed. That's the. Yeah, this one you can't.
No, it's not good for one-handed.
All right, let's take a look at some of the details of the Frikar. You're sitting pretty upright and the seat is very comfortable. The steering handles can be put down for easier entry and exit. And here the vertical back opens to give access to the luggage space. The seat can be adjusted, but also the position of the cranks. The extra small turning circle is achieved with moving the wheels a bit forward and back when you turn the steering bar.
That helps.
Here you see the belt-driven generator in front and the fan with the pollen filter supplied by Miele, as it says here. The seat is pretty airy, and the two green fasteners that you see in the back, they can be opened to pull the seat forward to access the rear luggage compartment. So much for a first impression. After the press briefings, there was an open session, and you could see that a number of people had come to see the Frikar in reality and also to try it out eventually.
Yeah, and my understanding, Joseph, is that it was a very successful launch and tour around Germany at each of the stops. They had 4 or 5 different cities that they stopped in?
Yeah. Actually, I think they wanted to do that much earlier, but they couldn't because of the pandemic. And even this year, it wasn't all that easy. But they still got it running. And I think that was pretty smart to have the day divided in 2. You know, so I had more quality time with some of the engineering people and with Per, the guy behind all of that. And I could probably have taken it for a longer ride even, but it was in downtown Düsseldorf. You know? And I wasn't familiar, it was in the harbor area, and I wasn't too familiar with it. There was a lot of cobblestone in that particular area. And even with the full suspension of the Frikar, that wasn't exactly that much fun to ride. So I would like to take it on a longer ride, but it was good enough to get a good first impression of it. Later
this
in
is
the
what
afternoon,
I want to ask you. So let's go there, Joseph. So what were your impressions now? Now that you're a little bit more free to talk, you're not in front of the representatives and the manufacturers there. I want your honest opinion about what you thought about this Frikar.
Well, I have to say, you know, measured against all the hype that has been surrounding this project, I was a bit underwhelmed. You know, I thought for something that looks very well designed, and a lot of effort, a lot of money apparently has gone into that, and something that weighs around 90 kilo, it should work a little bit better. You know, it should impress me with a smooth ride and a fairly quiet ride. And I found it, measured to the velomobiles that I normally ride, I found it very noisy. I think, yes, you will also in another velomobile with maybe a Bafang assist in front of you, you will hear, because the shell amplifies the noise, you will hear that. But there you have these 2 motors. When you are pedaling, you have the generator that you hear. You have the one rear motor that you are propelling with the power that you have generated, and the other one that is fed by the battery. And I think that was just too noisy for me. And I think also some of the engineering difficulties have not yet been solved. You have a huge top. You see this huge plexiglass top there. That's a difficult construction job to design that in a way that it is stiff enough to, properly fall into place. You have seen me closing this, and you have to smash it.
Yeah, it didn't look terribly. It didn't look terribly robust.
No, it would not.
When I saw it a few years ago, really, it was about the same. So your point is a good one. Now they have been delayed in their production, like so many other manufacturers have. So you would think, with the opportunity to have more time for re-engineering and updating and stuff, that they might have gone a little bit further with to refine, but you didn't find that to be the case.
Right. I'm not an engineer and I'm not a production planner, but it seemed to me that this probably needs another year to solve some of these issues, and maybe it also needs a little bit of change on the construction itself, because one of the essential things is actually that you can properly and reliably close that huge hood. That, I think, once it is closed and you have secured it in the right spot, then the noise insulation from the outside is perfect, and the view is excellent, and you sit there and it's quite nice. And I can see myself even in a business suit getting into this, and with some very easy movement of my feet, roll down the street at 20-25 kilometers. But without the assistance, it is no fun. This is 200 pounds that you don't move that around easily.
All right, Josef, if you could give us maybe your top 2 or 3 suggestions from what you've seen so far. If you were in charge of the Frikar and you were to make it a success, in your estimation, what 2 or 3 things would you change?
Well, I think the mechanics have to work. It has to work like you would expect it to work in a car. And it is something. How car buyers open the door of a car and close it and listen to the sound of it. And that gives them a clue as to the amount of effort the manufacturer has put into that. Something of that sort, I think, is needed for the Frikar. And then you have the essential thing in front of you is this generator that you are cranking. And that looks like you could break it if you're not cautious enough. Huh? And that has to be very solid, very smooth, and reliable. So it must be all very, very easy. And that, I think, is the most essential. And then you can add some noise reduction and some other fine details to it. But these would be my most important issues to solve.
Per mentioned the over-the-air updates, like Tesla does, for instance, which I think is a great idea. But I think your point is well taken. So you can't do an over-the-air update on the hardware.
No.
So you have to get that right first, make it solid, make it work. But then it does give you a great opportunity. I think it's a really good idea to make all sorts of important improvements to that over time without having to recall the vehicle or bring it in anywhere. They can do it over the air. I think that's a good idea. Do you?
Yes, I agree to that. It's I think one of the most striking features is actually this lack of a physical connection by a chain. Now, I think Per was inspired by the wrong model, because the Alaveda has a partially open drivetrain. That, of course, means a lot of maintenance. Now, modern velomobiles don't have that issue, but still, if you have that belt drive to the generator, if and when that works very nicely, that is a very elegant way to solve the requirement of some pedalability of something like this, and the fact that you don't really want to pedal. Because you're essentially, you come with a car mentality to that. You want to move your feet, yes, you don't mind, but it doesn't have to be work. You know,
Right.
and that they have to get into a place there.
All right, so I got a few questions on Facebook. I think we have, between Per and you, have answered pretty much all of these. James Schroeder had a few questions. I think, Doug, you know who that is. Asked about the weight of the vehicle being 3 times as much as a QV, but then again, it's an electric vehicle. Are there plans to lighten the model? I don't think there's much in the way of that. Anything you know about there? To make the a version that's lighter, Joseph?
Oh no, they wouldn't.
Yeah,
I don't see that. I'd rather believe that they will probably add another like 10, 20 pounds with solving some of the issues. But you know, in effect, when you're pedal assisted with the right size of battery, that doesn't matter. And this is not an HPV. This is a Velocar. That's why I think it's very useful that we had this discussion with Craig before. You really have to bear that distinction in mind. When you come from the HPV point of view, that's all going into the wrong direction. But on a Velocar, any weight that solves some of the issues that I've been mentioning is sort of acceptable.
Right. The other questions all revolved, and there were quite a few of them, about not having the pedals attached to the drive wheels. We've really hit that quite a bit, and they have a solution. It's not the best solution, but it's what it is, I guess. So, all right, guys, I think what we want to do now is finish up the discussion with the other big question here, that's been touched on, which is the 3 versus 4-wheel legalities here in North America, maybe elsewhere. And Doug, do you want to kick it off here with talking about what you think the possibilities are for a vehicle like the Podbike here in North America?
So, all right. So this is an area that if I was back in college, which was all too many decades ago, we would be having debates on at some point. But I will start this out with saying I'm not a lawyer, but I've been doing this kind of thing for most of my career. I keep, and Gary, you know this, and we'll share it at a later segment as we go into real depth on the legality of all sorts of recumbents. I keep a spreadsheet that tracks these sort of things. And I'm gonna back up a half second. There are 2 kinds of laws that play into this, and a whole bunch of pieces of each one of them. One is whether or not the bike is a consumer product, and that's covered at the federal, what we call CPSC level, and there's some definitions on both bicycles and recumbents inside of that, and there is a definition in the preamble of this of a bicycle being 2 or 3 wheels. Further down in that, there's more definitions about recumbents having pedals out in front of them, and there's no wheel limitations, but you're getting really into some esoteric legal language. So generally, people have kind of spread the rumor on the internet that a 2 or 3 wheel bicycle is only a bicycle, and it's the only legal thing. That's not necessarily true. You have to read the entire statute, and you have to read the dockets that codified it to understand that when the pedals got put out front, the wheel limitation went away under that CPSC rule. Also mentioned earlier, there was something about one-offs. There is some rules about handmade and one-off bikes and things like that completely obliterate any of those kind of wheel limitations inside the CPSC. But that has only to do with whether or not it's a consumer product. The federal government doesn't control what's on the roads. That's up to the states. And then you get into the Wild West. I have a huge spreadsheet on this that write me, email me, we can link to it in this. People can look at where I have all these codes summarized. Right now there are, I just pulled it up because about once a week I update this with conversations I have with legislators and things like that. There are 13 states in the US where something like the Podbike would be considered a legal vehicle from a very strict interpretation of the code.
A legal or illegal? Did you say that?
A legal vehicle, meaning there's nothing wrong with riding it on the road.
In 13 states, it should be okay right now. That's what you're saying.
Well, and that's another one of these tiers and things. The law has to be it doesn't have to be explicit. It has to be implicit. So if you go into one of the states where it's not defined, that doesn't necessarily mean it's not a vehicle. What it means is they didn't define it. And so things get into, what happened, a judicial review process, should you get cited or an accident or something like that, so they can determine whether or not it fits because it wasn't explicitly defined out like a scooter is.
Right. All right. So I don't want to get too far into the weeds on this. We are going to have a further discussion.
It's a favorite project of mine, as you know.
Well, that's what I want to say. I think we've delineated the issue pretty well. But Doug, you are working very hard to change all this there and around the country, and that's where we're going to go eventually. So this is not really the place to do that, but we will do that in the next month or two. So
let me give you two other statistics that matter.
Okay, sure.
If you use the implicit coding, which is not the way the law works, but if you were to do that, like a lot of people have cited the 3-wheel versus 4-wheel, then recumbents are only legal in 38 states. Recumbent trikes are only legal in 24 states. Quadricycle hand cycles are only legal in 20 states. So you have to be really careful about picking and choosing some of the words out of these laws, because if you declare that you want to only agree with the implicit definitions that are structured, then you really limit what's there. Fortunately, the law doesn't work that way, and we are allowed to ride our recumbents out on the street. But that's to give you an example of how this 3-wheel, 4-wheel gets wadded up out in the
It's a Byzantine labyrinth type of setup that you have to negotiate, and we've talked a little bit about that before. We will.
It's frighteningly complicated.
So all that to say, for the purposes of this conversation, this is what a company like Podbike is facing in terms of getting their product to North America. Now, in a practical sense, from what Josef has told us, it's not a huge issue because they can't supply their demand right now and for the next few years. Is that fair to say, Josef?
Yes, that's right. And I believe they will never consider to export to the United States or North America, for that matter. I think for a couple of other reasons, which have to do with liability rules over on your side. I think it's a much smarter strategy to license production. Actually, and I let me add that, I think they are already in negotiations for license production on the European continent. They won't do it all out of Norway. I think Norway is just, the launch pad for these things, because Norway is going to be the first European country that's going to go completely electric in car traffic. So there you have a very responsive environment, so to say. But when they really hitting the market, they need to move out of Norway, and then production probably will be done in a couple of places in Germany and maybe elsewhere in Europe.
And then also, as you say, so you're not saying that the Podbike would never come to North America. You're saying they're not going to manufacture it. They're likely to license it.
Yeah, to build it in Norway and ship it to the United States. That probably commercially doesn't really make much sense nowadays. And probably the way it is designed, and I think this is one of the advantages that Per actually has going for his project, is this is designed from the start to be something that could be mass produced. If you could see it now that it has a number of parts that are set up and standardized and designed in a way that they could all then be machine built. A number of the parts, all the parts that you saw in the video in green, these come all out of a 3D printer. Now, because they want to do those massive investments into the tooling side of that once when it is a refined and ready product. And then the idea is not to have hand-built machines like the velomobiles out of Romania that we ride now and that Doug imports in the dozens into the United States. But then this will roll out of a factory, in a little bit like a car factory.
Yeah, somewhere probably near Doug, maybe it'd be a manufacturing facility right there in Dallas. Doug, what do you think? Right, we won't go. Okay, you know what? There's one last question, and let's see. There is a question about price. There we go. Ballpark price, I think or you mentioned it in the piece, but Joseph, do you remember the general price of the pod bike there in Europe?
Yeah, well, they were speaking around a base price of around 5,000 euros. I think in the meantime, the base price is around 6,000 euros. But then the base price means you'll get a model that doesn't have the things that you necessarily would want in a model like that. So probably we're speaking about 7,000 to 8,000 euros, which still is not terribly expensive if you compare that to a number of the carbon fiber velomobiles that come out of Romania these days.
Right. And he said he had 3,000 pre-orders.
He had 3,000 orders. You know, there are people over here in the debate who say, no way they will be able to offer that for that amount of money. But we'll see, you know, for the time being, these are the figures that they play with. And because some people say the necessary work on this, and then the tooling costs of all of that will drive it into the area beyond 10K in euro. I don't know, you know, if their upscaling model works, they can be as efficient in terms of the price as the Australian rotomold,
Rotovelo, yeah,
which can be produced at much lower costs. So.
For sure. Craig, did you have any thoughts updating yourself on what you've seen here today, just briefly?
Yeah, I have basically three thoughts. One is of course the cost. Who's going to spend this amount of money? Joseph brought up a point that I hadn't thought about. I came from the bike racer community, so I'm a HPVer. And you know what's attractive about a bicycle is a very simple device for what it does. Now, when you put a fairing on it, make it a velomobile, it of course gets more complicated, but we still look at the efficiency use of materials and things like that. The Velocar had a weight of 120 pounds, and I looked at it and said overweight, drastically overweight. The third piece, and it might be the most relevant legally, is that these might be the smallest electric vehicles that you can have, where the only caveat is you have to have pedals. But you could put pedals on something. You just pedal in one gear, like the Clive Sinclair's C5, which didn't pedal worth a damn, but was a decent electric vehicle. It allows you to create a vehicle that's smaller than anything else out there, but yet it is still something that is a powered vehicle. So you could envision a design where you maximize the electrical power that is legally given to you, and you just have a pedal with a chain and a overriding clutch that the people are probably never going to use, but you've created a very lightweight, I can't even call it a micro car. You've got the India made that Tata Nano. It's like a nano car. And if you look at it from that standpoint, it is a standalone new class of vehicles, whether you want to call it a Velocar.
All right, thanks, Craig. Let's finish up here. We're going long, of course, but Daryl's been asking about comparing the pod bike to the Elf. The Elf, as far as I understand, is not currently being manufactured, but I guess it's a fair thing to compare. The Elf could not make a go of it here in the States, at least up until the last couple of years when it started petering out. Why do you think, guys, do you think a vehicle like the pod bike would have a better chance, or do you think it would have a better chance than the Elf did? Go ahead, Craig. You can start. I think you know a little something about the Elf.
Yeah, well, I think the Elf was too wide. I watched a fair number of Elf videos, and you've got them in the traffic lane, and that's going to prevent cars from passing you, unless it's a residential area. Where I live, the residential speed is 25 miles an hour. If you get away from that, you're at 35 miles an hour. So you're basically at 60 kilometers per hour. That's some serious speed for a lightweight vehicle. But I think the width of the ELF was a big issue. Where can you ride it? You can't ride it on a bikeway next to a highway. And you're going to get in the way of people on a dedicated bike trail.
Yep, Honza just sent me a little message, and I was just going to say part of what you said, Honza, having to do with the design and style, which I think is important these days. Honza, what was your idea about why the ELF didn't succeed?
Because it was not nice, or it was ugly, and it was what was it? Not fully enclosed. I think that it has to be fully enclosed so you feel good in it in winter. That's a
if you allow me that.
Go ahead.
Honza is absolutely right. The pod bike has, when it works, has the look and feel of an iPhone on wheels. That's what I think will be the appeal of that to a sort of suburban commuter population that is fairly affluent. They will say, oh, that looks neat. And at least in my part of the world, a lot of cities nowadays have a pretty decent bicycle commuting trail network. And the pod bike is just narrow enough to comfortably negotiate that. And its turning circle is so easy that even people who cannot imagine that you can ride a velomobile on a bike trail, they will be able to do that with a pod bike, with no learning curve whatsoever. So I think that is the difference to the ELF. The ELF, even in Europe, would not have a chance on the market.
Yeah, there's just no sexiness, factor, ooh factor to the ELF, I'm afraid, and I think that has something to do with purchasing decisions, a lot to do with it. So, guys, go ahead, Craig, and then we're going to have to finish up here.
An interesting side point is the designer of the ELF came out of the human-powered vehicle movement. So I thought that's kind of odd because it's like an exploded goldfish kind of thing.
Yeah, it was all practicality, I think, and maybe not even all that practical. So, all right, guys, thank you so much, Josef, especially you for taking time out of your busy schedule to make the trip to Dusseldorf and check out the Podbike, and you put together just that great interview with Per and your review of the Podbike. We really appreciate that. So, thanks a lot, Josef.
You're welcome.
All right, guys. Okay, I think it is time to move on to the HP Velotechnik short segment here about what they've got new going on. It's a new hand-powered trike adapter. Let's have a look.
Hello and welcome. My name is Mathieu Aubel, and today I'll be presenting HP Velotechnik's latest creation, our brand new hands-on cycle. So, what is very special with this one? We have a completely nice trike where the cables are fully integrated in the boom right here. So there's no chain wheel disc in your face. We have a clean cockpit where you could put your smartphone, for example. We have the speedometer or your computer. You could put a bell as well. So you have a very clean design up here. In the front boom as well, you have the option to mount a light, as this one has, which is great. It fits inside, and it's all got a clean look. The nicest thing about the hand cycle is the steering. It's a combination of pulling and shifting like this. It's really easy to do, and this enables you to have a really great turning circle, which is much better than most of the hand trikes. With this, you can literally go around the corner like that. The hands-on cycle is going to be available with two different HP models. It would come with the Gecko FX26 or with the Scorpion FS20. It comes with a standard shifting option with a triple shift 24, and it would be available in the spring next year for $2,490. And if you wanted to, you could also have a roll-off fitted or a Neodrives motor in the rear. I will now be presenting our standard ErgoMesh mesh seat. This is the new one. Basically, it's got the AutoFlex technology, which I'll be explaining right now. We have 4 pockets like this one here, and we have cushions inside. This enables you to basically shape the seat the way you want, so we can adapt it to different body shapes and sizes. We have those cushions on both sides, on the back, and as well here. I'll be showing you this one as well. This is a very soft cushion. The seat is super nice and comfortable. Here we have the breathable part, which is see-through, and this shows that when you will be riding on a longer tour, you won't be sweating as much. This piece here is got the softer mesh, which is more for comfort. And we have a new mesh as well, and it's absolutely fantastic. If you need more comfort, you can also add the headrest, which allows you to just lay back and enjoy your ride. On top of that, the seat has a zipper. I don't know if you can see it. It opens right here. And this storage area is perfect for your keys or whatever you want to take with you. It's just a small one. You could, for example, if you need more storage space, you could get the add-on bags, those ones. In here, you could fit your rain cover or the cover for the full trike. It has a zipper as well. There you go. This one right here is open, so it's breathing too, so you could put the wet rain cover and it would dry whilst you're riding. This is also very useful. And of course, the seat comes with the hole for our HP flag. The new ErgoMesh seat is available in different sizes. As you probably already know, there's the option of having the higher one, then you could get the wider one, and also both, so it's higher and wider. And they all obviously come with the AutoFlex technology for maximum comfort. So the new ErgoMesh seat is available for the Scorpion trikes as well as the two-wheelers. If you want to, only the mesh seat is available, or you could get the whole new seat. These are the 2 options you have. The latest change on our trikes are going to be the brakes. Next year, our new standard brake will be the hydraulic disc brake BRMT200, which is a really great brake, which we also have been using for our two-wheelers, and it's now available on our trikes. We will be keeping the Avid BB7 as an option as well. Also new are the support belts, now available in XL. So this option is mainly for people who have a disability, who need extra fixation and stability on their seat. They will gonna need more support, and the new XL support belt is gonna provide you with that. Also new, we are replacing the Triple Shift 27 with the Triple Shift 30. You won't only have 3 more gears, but it's also a significant upgrade with the Shimano XT derailleur. That's it, folks. Thanks for watching. Thank you, Gary. And hopefully we'll meet at the Spezi next year. Dankeschön und auf Wiedersehen. Viel Spaß noch. Ciao. Soll ich noch? The seat also has the mount for the HP flag right here. So we also have some really big changes now. We have a new right here. Right here.
Nobody's perfect, Mathieu. Good job. We appreciate that report. All right, let's move right along to the sports report. And Denny's got Cliff Federspiel for us today.
Hey, today I've got a short interview with Clifford Federspiel of El Cerrito, California. Last month at the World Time Trial 12-Hour Championships, he placed second overall in a field of over 40 12-hour racers. He was one of only 2 recumbents entered in the race, and the overall winner was 30 years younger and bested Cliff by just 8 miles over 12 hours. Cliff's effort of 272.4 miles is third overall highest recorded on any type of bike for 12 hours at the World Time Trial Championships. So welcome to the Laid Back Bike Report, Cliff.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself. Give us some background.
I'm a technologist. I started a software company that provides solutions for data centers and other types of buildings, making them more energy efficient and more reliable. I been riding bikes seriously only since 2015. Before that, bikes were mostly just like a way to get around. Before that, I was playing water polo, actually. When I was much younger, I did competitive swimming for years and years and a little bit of kind of rec level water polo. And then I found out there was a team nearby that was playing, so I played with them for a number of years.
What kind of training did you do for this event?
So for this one, I hired a coach. His name is Nate English. And so he set up a program for me on Training Peaks. And, it's kind of typical structured training compared to the training I did on my own for the 6-hour race at Borrego Springs. It was, a lot more intense, a little bit more time, but higher intensity and more focus on strength training and stuff like that. And I started that a little bit earlier. So kind of like mid-May is when I started getting serious about training for this race, which the race was on October 9th.
Yeah. Now you had done 6 hours before then last year or 2 years ago?
Last year the race didn't run because of COVID.
Right. Yeah.
So it was 2 years ago in 2019, I did the 6-hour race.
And was that your first race and this your second?
Of this kind of length, I'd done some, shorter things that are not, so serious and competitive. But yeah.
You've been accepted with open arms into the Cruzbike family, I see. Have you had a chance to meet some of those folks?
I haven't met any of the Parkers face to face, but I've talked with them. So let's see, 2019 before the race, I talked to both, Jim and Maria Parker on the phone, and then after this race, Jim Parker reached out to me and we had a little Zoom conversation.
Good.
Just to kind of, talk about how things went and stuff like that. Yeah. I bought a Cruzbike after we bought one for my wife. We bought one for her because of her carpal tunnel. Mm-hmm. It did a great job of dealing with that. So I thought it was pretty cool. So I got one for myself. The one I got was the S30, which is a pretty fast bike. But after a while, I started thinking I'd like to try something competitive. So I ended up buying the V20 to, just try out some more competitive events. And, I heard about some of these, 6 and 12 and 24-hour events. So I decided I'd first put my toe in the water with a 6 hour, see how that goes. And, the 6-hour race, I think I did pretty well 2 years ago. So I decided I'd just step it up a little bit and try a 12-hour.
What were the highlights of the race for you?
I had a really great start. Just took off at a really good pace and felt like I was doing great. The plan that I had, so on the back of this cruise bike, I have a Bacchetta brain box that holds has a lot of volume to it. So for hydration, I put a 3 3/4 liter hydration bladder in there, and then I have a smaller top bottle up front. So with that amount of volume, I figured I could maybe get away with just 2 pit stops the whole 12 hours. It didn't actually work out that way, but you know, I went until 5 hours, 15 minutes before the first pit stop and was feeling great at the point. I was leading the field by over 3 minutes. And, but that pit stop took a long time, and I made the mistake of eating too many carbs and kind of, it was a bit of a gut bomb that, it slowed me down after that. So yeah, I think, the first part of the race was great. Borrego Springs is a really dry place. It's out in the desert, of course. And so usually it's just clear sky, but there had been a storm system, that blew through like the day or two before. In fact, the Friday before the race started, it was really windy. And even for the 24-hour racers overnight, I heard very windy, and some of them had to get off their bikes and just, take significant amount of time because they're getting pushed around by the wind so much. But the thing that was really, striking to see was the sunrise, actually. Every time we'd come around and face the sun, it was spectacular, really. It looked great.
Cool. So, and you had family was crewing for you, right?
Yeah, my wife, my son, and my son's girlfriend. So not everything went well at this race. I ended up at the end really dehydrated for a couple of reasons. One was a bomb, kind of kept me from feeling like I wanted to drink for a little while. It made me a little nauseous, which wasn't so great. And then the wind, it died down a bit in the middle of the race, but then it picked back up, and I was running with a covered front wheel. And so that was making it in a few spots on the course actually hazardous to take my hand off the bar to grab my, to take a drink. So I had to be like kind of tactical about when and where I took a drink, which I think caused me to drink less. So at the end of the race, I was really dehydrated and needed a little bit of medical attention. What I want to do, I think, is another 12-hour race where I still feel good and strong at the end of the race.
That's great. I'm glad to see you doing well and doing a really competitive race. Especially, since you're new at it and you've done just really so well. And thanks for spending some time with us.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Okay. Well, good luck with the coming season. Hope to see you in Sebring.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks.
Cool. There are several other racers to report on at the World Time Trial Championships. Sandy Earl set the women's 50 to 59 recumbent record in the 12-hour with a 186-mile effort. In the 24-hour race, Caleb Klein went over 300 miles to establish the 20 to 29 recumbent trike record. I'll bet Caleb did all those miles with a smile on his face. He's an awesome competitor. Joe Pixley turned in 348 miles for the win in the recumbent 50 to 59 age group, and Ian Hoffman won the solo recumbent 40 to 49 age group. In the 6-hour race, Dan Fallon rode 76.8 miles to be the first recumbent in his age group. That's it for this month. Don't forget the Sebring race is on for February. It's not the first race of the year, but it's one of the oldest and best attended. Plus, it's Florida in the wintertime. You can't go wrong there. Something to consider. So stay on the bike and keep moving forward. Back to you, Gary.
All right. Fine. I think that will work fine. All right. Anything else?
No. Let me get it.
No, I guess there's nothing else. My editing skills seem to be deteriorating. I'm not sure what the issue is. Anyways, let's move along. See how I did on Larry's video. Larry is going to talk to us about some senior games around the country. Larry, let's hear that.
Hey guys, the Nevada Senior Games welcomed recumbents for 2 days of racing October 2nd and 3rd. The venue was about 10 miles north of Las Vegas, just off of Interstate 15 at Highway 93. The courses were all on a desolated road, Las Vegas Boulevard North. The first race was the 5K time trial, which had racers starting out at 3.1 miles north of there and then racing back with a slight uphill near the finish. Roger Reddish was the only recumbent, and he finished in 1909. Up next was the 40K road race. Roger was once again the only recumbent, and here's how they lined up to start. It was 2 loops of an out and back, and Roger finished in 2 hours, 16 minutes, 30 seconds. Sunday, October 3rd, started with the 10K time trial, which was a one-time out and back. Roger did it in 33:45, and I did 18:45, which would have been good enough for second out of 4 in my age group. But in deciding the awards, they split out the recumbents and age groups and awarded both of us gold. The final Nevada race was the 20K road race. Roger and I lined up near the rear. It quickly formed into a single file of about 10 riders near the front, and I was at the rear of this lead pack. I was able to keep up with the lead pack for most of the race, but getting dropped on a little climb in the last few miles. Overall, I was 8th out of 15 with a time of 35:42. Roger's time was 1 hour, 12 minutes. We both got gold since they once again split out recumbents for awards. Then it was on to the Huntsman-Senior Games in St. George, Utah. First up was the hill climb. This was a climb of about 900 feet and 3 miles up Snow Canyon. There were 4 recumbents. Steve Narrow was the fastest recumbent in 24:59. I got 26:45, Phil No did 33:03, and Roger did 1 hour, 3 minutes. We all got gold. The next day was the time trial, and thanks to Rosemary Hanlon for sharing these pictures with us. Here is what I looked like at the start. It was a point-to-point course consisting of rolling hills, majestic views of Red Rock, and Gunlock Mountains with desert vistas. We climbed 600 feet in 8 miles. Once again, Steve Narrow was the fastest recumbent, doing that in 28:26. Here is Steve and Phil at the finish with their windsock-covered Easy Racers. Larry Hanlon from Arizona raced using his Ice VTX. All 5 recumbent riders got gold since we were in different age groups. The third day in St. George, Roger did the criterium or crit, and we believe this is the first ever recumbent in the crit there. This was on a small 1.3K flat loop behind the Dixie Convention Center. Roger was grouped into racers of similar skills and age divisions. The officials did a good job of keeping track of the number of laps done by each racer. It did not pull racers out once they were lapped. Recumbents were not split out for awards, and Roger got silver in the beginner men 70 to 74 at 3 laps down in 24:45. While Roger was doing his crit, Paul Landry volunteered to be the course sweeper on his Terra trike at the 5K running race. He also did that same thing shown here at the 10K running race. The final day of cycling for us there was in the triathlon. The cycling portion was a 13-mile point-to-point starting at the new Desert Color Community Clubhouse, winding around and getting on and off the Southern Parkway Highway 7, and then finishing at the Kenworth Sales Company parking lot. It was foggy and misty for most of the cycling part, causing limited visibility. I did the cycling portion in 43:06, which was 10th out of 15 in my age group. And Roger did this as part of a relay in 1 hour, 2 minutes. Recumbents were not split out for awards, so Roger's team won gold in their age group, which was determined by adding the ages of the swimmer, the cyclist, and the runner. So here's a summary of the results with the Nevada races on the left columns and Utah on the right columns. So that's it, guys, from the Nevada and Utah Senior Games.
All right, Larry, thanks. Now, I guess you've got a little update and summary here, don't you?
Yeah, one more thing to add. Dave Lilligini competed in the Mississippi Senior Games in Biloxi on October 2nd and 3rd. He did the 5K on his Green Speed Arrow in 9 minutes. There's his Green Speed Arrow. He did that in 9 minutes, 8 seconds. And then the next day he did the 10K on his Cruzbike think it's the Vendetta, and he did that in 18 minutes, 6 seconds. And there's adding Dave to the summary of all the other results from adding it into Nevada. I just want to add in and encourage everybody to look into their senior games in their area next year, and hopefully we can get more recumbents into the senior games.
Yeah, more and more sports news on the senior games and more participation, which is wonderful, guys. We've been touting that for quite a while here on Laid Back Bike Report, so it's good to see participants at these games, and we'll keep reporting on it. So, Larry, thank you so much, and congratulations on the results of your participation. So,
thanks.
And all right, I'm going to put you back into the director's seat, and let's finish up with the sponsors of the Laid Back Bike Report. First of all, we want to thank TerraCycle. From fairings to headrests, whatever accessory you need, Pat and crew have you covered. And Trailside Trikes. If you find yourself in Florida, near the Withlacoochee Trail, or in Knoxville, Tennessee, check out Andrew's shop and his amazing crew. And Cruzbike, their patented race and record-proven front-wheel drive geometry changes the rules of cycling. Now, comfort doesn't come at the cost of performance, but fair warning, your cheeks may hurt from smiling. And TerraTrike and Greenspeed Trikes. Your vision, whatever it is, TerraTrike has a trike to take you there. And Greenspeed cutting-edge designs create performance through Aussie ingenuity. And Laid Back Cycles, the top USA dealer for TerraTrike and the premier source for Catrike, Ice, and Greenspeed. We give you the freedom to ride. And Recumbent CycleCon. We've postponed the 2021 Recumbent CycleCon trade show, but please join us on October 8th and 9th, 2022 at the Montgomery County Fairgrounds in Dayton, Ohio. More info at recumbentcyclecon.com. All right, guys, no viewer submissions this week, but remember, if you've got something you want to share with the Laid Back Bike Report, we will be happy to put it on for you. Just contact me at laidbackbikereport@gmail.com. All right, next Laid Back Bike Report will be December 5th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. We hope you'll join us then. We got some things in the fire here, and we'll let you know about it during the upcoming month. Now, how can you support the Laid Back Bike Report? It would be great if you like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and just click that little white eye that might pop up there, take you to the laidbackbikereport.com website, where you can find out so much more about us. And please help us financially by becoming a Patreon for as little as $1 a month. That's what all these guys have done. So it is a great way to support what we do if that's something you'd like to do, or just watch the shows every month. We love our viewers any way they do it. So thanks. All right, let's bring everybody back up if we can. And want to thank all my wonderful crew members and contributors for this show. It was a wonderful show. We really covered the subjects, I think, quite thoroughly today. And it's always great having you guys on. So we really appreciate that. Thanks, guys. All right. And I guess that's going to be pretty much it. We want to thank all of our wonderful viewers who watch us every month. So until our next webcast, from all of us here at the Laid Back Bike Report, so long, Bent Riders.